The emergency department never truly slept, but at 2:17 a.m. it moved differently. Slower on the surface, heavier underneath. Fluorescent lights hummed above polished floors, their cold glow reflecting off stainless steel rails and glass doors streaked with rain. Outside, ambulance lights flashed and vanished, red and white bleeding into the darkness like fading signals. Inside, monitors beeped in disciplined rhythm, the sound of fragile lives being measured, one heartbeat at a time. Lieutenant Commander Jack Thorne lay on a narrow hospital bed near the center of the ward. His right shoulder was wrapped tight, the bandages already darkening beneath layers of gauze. Blood loss had been controlled, but the pain remained sharp, deliberate, impossible to ignore. He welcomed it. Pain meant awareness. Awareness meant control. Jack did not like hospitals. They felt exposed. Too many blind angles. Too many people moving without structure. He stayed upright despite the injury, eyes tracking everything, footsteps, voices, reflections in glass. Years of combat had carved that habit into him. A nurse stood beside his bed, adjusting an IV line. She was quiet, almost unsettlingly so. Her movements were precise, economical, and unhurried. She didn't fill the air with reassurances or unnecessary questions. She didn't rush, she didn't linger. She simply did the work. Jack took her in with a professional glance and dismissed her just as quickly. Slim build, smooth hands, calm eyes, civilian. In his world, stillness usually meant inexperience. "Pain level?" she asked. "Manageable," Jack replied flatly. She nodded once and adjusted the drip, eyes already shifting to the monitor. Her badge read Emma Collins, RN. Around them, the night staff moved with exhausted familiarity. A young resident, Marcus Reed, leaned against a counter, arms crossed, watching the scene with thinly veiled impatience. "She's reliable," he muttered to another nurse, loud enough to be heard, "but she's background, not assertive enough for real trauma." Emma heard him.
She did not react. She secured the IV line and checked Jack's vitals again, her focus absolute. The numbers mattered, opinions did not. For 5 years, Emma Collins had worked nights, always nights. She took the cases others avoided, intoxicated patients, violent injuries, trauma soaked in chaos. She never complained, never asked for recognition. She absorbed the unit's friction quietly, like part of the building itself. They called her the ghost, never to her face. Critical patients under her care rarely coded. No one could explain why. Emma never tried to. Her notes were clean, clinical, and emotionless. She didn't think in terms of miracles, only systems holding or failing. Jack watched her from the corner of his eye, irritation mixing with something else. Unease. Her stillness wasn't passive, it was anchored, deliberate. It reminded him uncomfortably of men who waited calmly before violence. Then the sound shattered everything. "Get out of the way!" It wasn't a shout, it was a raw animal bellow that ripped through the ward, cutting through beeping monitors and murmured voices. A large man burst through the emergency doors, eyes wide and unfocused, breathing erratic. His coat hung open, one hand hidden inside. Panic exploded. A patient screamed. A nurse stumbled backward. Dr. Reed froze, knocking over a supply cart as it clattered across the floor. Curtains fluttered, and as people tried to disappear behind thin fabric, security was nowhere near close enough. Jack's instincts surged. He tried to rise, pain tearing through his shoulder. His eyes locked on the glint of metal as the man pulled his hand free. A shank. Crude. Sharp. Before Jack could move,
Emma did. There was no hesitation, no calculation. She yanked the privacy curtain shut with brutal force, completely blocking Jack from the attacker's view. Her left hand pressed firmly against Jack's uninjured shoulder. "Stay down," she said. Her voice was low, controlled, absolute. Jack froze. That tone did not belong to a civilian. The intruder lunged forward, rage snapping into focus as he raised the weapon. Emma stepped forward. What followed lasted less than 4 seconds. She shifted her weight, intercepted the attacker's wrist, and applied precise pressure to the radial nerve. Pain detonated through his arm. In the same motion, she pivoted, using his momentum against him, locking the elbow and stripping the weapon free with surgical efficiency. The shank hit the floor with a sharp metallic clatter. The attacker collapsed into a controlled joint lock, screaming as all leverage vanished. Silence swallowed the ward. Security finally rushed in, tackling the man and cuffing him in stunned confusion. The chaos that had threatened to consume the room evaporated as quickly as it had arrived. Jack stared. He had seen close-quarters combat in alleys, compounds, and deserts. What Emma had executed was flawless, efficient, elite. Not nursing. Combat. Emma released the attacker and turned back to Jack's bedside, reaching for alcohol swabs as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Jack grabbed her wrist, not aggressively, professionally. His thumb brushed against a faint crescent-shaped scar near her tendon, a training scar. His voice dropped. "Where did you learn that?" Emma met his eyes calmly. "I was once required to defend others," she said, "just like you." Jack studied her harder now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by recognition. He whispered 3 words, a classified verification phrase. Emma paused. Half a second. Then she answered. Correctly. Jack sat upright despite the pain, disbelief flooding his face. "That code was retired," he muttered. "Only Task Force 7 would know it." Emma exhaled slowly. "I was a combat medic," she said quietly, "a long time ago." Jack shook his head. "That wasn't medic training. You ran protection." Before she could respond, alarms flashed across a nearby monitor. Restricted personnel identified. A military security officer entered the ward, posture rigid, presence commanding. Civilian staff turned pale as understanding hit in fragments. Jack spoke first. "That woman," he said, pointing at Emma, "just secured this entire ward. She operated under threat with perfect discipline. You've been working alongside an elite asset for years." The officer turned to Emma, not ordering, asking, "Ma'am, are you cleared for redeployment?" Emma glanced at the IV bag, adjusted the flow rate, and answered evenly, "I'm still on shift. I'll clock out when my replacement arrives." No one spoke. The story spread fast. Not nurse stopped attacker. Nurse Collins neutralized hostile. Dr. Reed found her hours later near the supply room. He didn't justify himself. He didn't defend his words. "I misjudged you," he said quietly. "I'm sorry." Emma stopped him with a gentle hand. "It's all right," she said. "Everyone carries something you can't see." Jack returned weeks later, no longer a patient. He stood tall in full uniform at the nurse's station and placed a small wooden box on the counter. Inside lay a bronze medallion, unmarked, recognizable. "You upheld the oath," he said. "You're cleared." Emma closed the box. "I'm still serving, just somewhere else." She continued working nights, still quiet, still invisible to those who didn't look closely. But when alarms sounded and pressure mounted, every eye turned to her, because they all knew now, some warriors fight in silence, and sometimes the strongest protector in the room is the one no one notices until it matters most.